Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brandon from Decision Support, here to host our daily lunch and learn from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Just let a couple people get in before we get started.
Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Vinny.
Morning.
Yep. Good morning. And I did see your submitted question. So you had a question about reading files from a decisions folder. I had a few questions myself. Is that like a folder on the file system, or is that like some sort of like case entity folder or process folder?
It's basically a folder inside a decision.
Okay. So I assume we're working. Let me share my screen. Nice. Let me share my decision screen. Okay, and so can everyone see my decision screen?
I can able to see.
You can see or you cannot?
I can see.
Okay, so did you go about creating like a folder entity or like a folder extension?
It's a
Um,
normal folder in a decision folder. Inside that we have a folder.
mhm.
It's not a root folder, but it's a normal folder.
Okay, so you have like a normal folder. So just say, let's call this a normal folder here. And so you have file data stored um, in like a normal folder.
Okay. Can you make another folder inside of that, and then can you place a file in this normal folder? I wanted to have another folder.
Okay. Is it like, it doesn't need to be a designer folder or
Once
just a
again, yeah,
regular?
that's normal folder. Once again.
Okay. Child folder for.
Yeah. Any text file inside of it?
So let me get a file real quick. So then let me just get a text file I have. Let's see. So do you have this file like as a document? What kind of file are you working with?
It's basically a template file which
Hmm.
has three kind of columns in a row,
Hmm.
and those value we need to replace it.
So you have a file that you need to replace some values for, and you
Yes,
said, is it like an X? You said it's an Excel file, or is it like a text
text
file?
file. It's a text file.
Okay. So then, so actually, let me do this. So we can probably go to lunch and learn. Okay, let's go to flow. And so how do we have that like file? We just have that file just stored on the folder itself, like this here, or like yeah. Unfortunately, I can't do a screen share. I guess I need more information on how you're uploading the file to a folder. Like you're just adding it like this, like you just did an import of the file, or do you have that like um
Yeah, I simply added the file, right click on that and add entity, and then I have added that file. In the folder, I did a right click and then, yeah,
so you right click and then you went to add?
add entity and then added a file after that, document. Yeah, entity and then document.
Oh, okay. So we have a document. Okay. So then we've added a file
Given the
like that.
name there, and then,
Okay.
yeah, the file have
So
uploaded.
every document should have its own document ID that we can fetch by. So if we go to copy, then there is we can go to integration. And is it, yep, internal service. And we have a document service here. we can then get the document by ID. And if you have like a list of documents, you can always just like create that list there. You can get all documents on the environment, or you can specify. In this case, we'll just specify a
So
document.
what we have in this file, it
Mhm.
has suppose multiple rows, and every row has three or four columns, and these three columns data I wanted to replace.
Okay. So this is again a text document. This sounds like more is it in like a CSV format, or like is it like comma
Kind
separated?
of, yes, kind of. It is the data is there. Yes.
Okay, if it's in a comma separated format, then it might be better to just have that instead of a text document, just have it as a CSV and work with our CSV steps to sort of fetch and replace.
So
Um, we
okay,
have
so
a
the extension for file is not CSV. It is
mhm.
extension for DAT. So I'm considering that okay, if it is anything, maybe it's a text file only. So that is what I'm thinking. And uh, how to replace that multiple columns values? One value I tried with the dollar. It is working, but multiple columns, how to replace? I'm not sure about.
If we're using a text file and we have columns, let's see. Okay, we're doing a .dat file. Like if we have a text, we can fetch the document that way. And so we have, because we can't really, I don't think we can really replace columns in a text file. Like if it wasn't like, I think converting it to a CSV or an Excel file would be the better bet here. Because I don't believe we can sort of replace columns in like a text file. That's normally what we'd have like a CSV file or a an Excel or XLS file. I think converting it to a CSV, like because if it's already in like a common separated sort of format, you can just just resave it and just add the dot like CSV to the end of it, and then that will convert to CSV, and then we can run that through the CSV steps there. But as a document, there are replace steps in like a text value, so there are um like replace row, replace text. But these are again like more for our Excel and CSV steps. There's also just a replace in text step, which you can then you can map in your source string that way, or you can well, actually I think this is hard code. This is actually just a hard code value. Okay. So that wouldn't be the best play. I think your best bet would probably be to get it converted to a CSV and then use our Excel steps, because then we can replace things, replace value in column right here. We can just do it like that. And then we can just place the file here. So you can supply the file type as like file data, and then from here you can choose what type we can work with, but we only work with CSV, XLS, or XLSX. There's also the auto select value, but I don't think it'll work because it should only pick through these three values. But I think converting it to a CSV, yep, in that format, in that format, I would suggest converting that file to a CSV and then working with our Excel CSV steps, because we do have like replace in column and replace row steps. So we can use that to replace like text that way.
Yeah.
And
So,
then we can output it like that.
but this will work for any format, or it will work only for CSV format, Robert?
It'll work for CSV. It should work for Excel and XLS. We have like the option to specify which one, but normally you can just throw it in the auto select, and if the type will work, it should work and just output what you need there.
Okay, yeah, there's a couple of things I want to check, or I guess have them check with like the amount of flows currently running on the environment. So I guess I'll kind of send over that.
Then you had another submitted question: how to replace multiple token from same file. What is the could you give a bit more context here on this token here?
Okay, I just pinged you, Robert, in that, like suppose in that text file, It is having like this kind of value, and I just wanted to replace ABC with some other value
Mhm,
and XYZ with some other value.
mhm. So in that case, either using like the replace text would probably be best. Like if you know the values you want to replace and with what, you can just say we want to replace, let's say we want to replace A, B, C with D, E, F. You can just choose which strings you want to replace with which
ABC or
value.
DBC, I wanted to replace, yeah,
And
DEF
then,
or anything. But
right.
I
And
had
then,
used it, the DEF, maybe something, D1F, something like that. So we can identify, okay, we have replaced it.
well, yeah, you can replace it. Like as long as you have your string or you take your data, right? And you can take your data and you can map it in as a string value because this is only with like string values here. Now,
Okay,
if you want to use like a CSV step, you can do that, or you can convert something into like a CSV string and then replace it that way. But you would want to use this step to sort of to show what strings you want to replace, and then you just place in replace with, and you can map in your source string for that. So that would be the best bet for just replacing like text like that, just using this replace text string.
so if we need to replace 3 times, then I need to replace text need to use 3 times, right?
If it's three different ones, yes. So if you want to like this will replace it for every value that's in it. So if you want to
Hmm.
do it for every value, this would do it. But if you want to do multiple values, then you'll need like multiple steps. So if you need A, B, C, and then X, Y, Z to also be replaced, then you'll need a second step to replace that as well.
Okay, so okay.
So we have a
So
set.
I'm unable to load this file. I was using that load file, load by file, something was I was using, but it was not working. So can you show me, Robert, how this file is loaded by the file ID?
So you're using a load file step, you said?
I tried that one, but yeah, I was unable to, it is not working on that time.
Was it the load file from file data or the load file step?
I can use the file ID also, right, Robert?
Yeah, you can if the file like is stored in the file system, should be a file. There should be like a file ID. But that if it's I'm sorry, let me think. Are we using file data or where's it like how's this file stored? Is it stored like on the is it stored on the file system or is it stored in like the database?
No, no, this file will be stored in a decisions folder that I
Okay.
need to load, and then after that,
Oh,
we need
okay.
to replace those text and then keep in another folders.
Okay.
Something
Well, that
like that.
file, okay. So that file is stored as a document. So you want to use this get from document by ID, not the
Correct.
load file stuff. So you want to use this get by ID step to load that, to pull that document and then feed it into these steps to make the changes that you want to make.
Correct. And if multiple file also if we have, so I need to, how basically I can join this, like in that folder I have one file. If I have
Mhm.
multiple file, how to load this and do the same kind of stuff? Any loop I need to use or how it is? Sorry, actually I'm very beginner to this decision, so
We can probably, let me think. I'd have to check these steps, but these internal services, or you go to your integration internal services document service. Here it is. Again, we have get all, get by folder ID. So if you have multiple files within a folder, you can then just provide the folder ID. This should fetch the documents out of there. And then from there, yeah, we have a for each element step, which you can then map in. So in your sort of design pattern, you would want to fetch those documents by their folder ID. That should fetch every document in the folder ID. From there, use this for each step to then select the output of this here. And then for each document, then you can then apply the logic like replace text. And this will loop through every document, replace the text, and then you can I would even then use an add item to list up to sort of output the items if you need to output them afterwards, or if you need to add them to, if you need to add all the documents to one, you'll have that entire like modified list output out of this
Correct,
loop here.
correct, correct.
So that's the let me grab it. But that's the pattern you should probably follow here, or follow. Sorry, if you want to do what you're asking. Then okay, I think everyone's covered. We'll move on to our next submitted question. Let me see. This is from Morel. I have a report with several date fields that end users would like to be able to filter on. I'd like to know how to set up a default filter and make it runtime editable, but what I didn't see how to do easily was to have a report come up unfiltered and have the user be able to select the filter on one of the date fields. I know there's a built-in filter on each field, but they are looking for a range and not a single deck. I checked in the documentation site and didn't see anything that matched what I'd like to be able to do. Transaction report. Okay, I think I know what this one is. I took a look at this one earlier before lunch and learn because the request got in early, and I built this report out. Raul, if you're on the call, let me see.
I am.
Yep, I see. So essentially, I just built this report, and I used this import date, or I use this date between rule filter here to sort of do this. And let me let me know if this isn't what you're looking for, but essentially you can use this option, the runtime editable behavior, and include selected days from a
Okay.
picker. And you
Mhm.
can choose a calendar as well. But when I run this report, now I currently have all the values, just showing up here in the range. What I can do now as a user is go here and then choose, okay, I don't want anything, before the 4th. I can select that. And I want only between the 4th and the 5th here. And I apply that here. And the report will automatically filter those options there.
Okay, so how did you get it to come up without the filter on? And we're using version 6. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Oh, that might be,
Because I have 2 different dates. So I have, like I said, I mean, there's 7 dates, but they only want to be able to filter on 2 of them, received or modified.
Mhm.
So if I go in and this is what I did to create the editable filter, runtime editable, that all worked fine. I did all this like you're showing here. So
Mhm.
I put in 2 different filters, one for import date and then one for a different date if there was a different date there.
Mhm.
So when I pull it up, it automatically tries to filter both of them to yesterday, which brings me nothing.
Gotcha.
I
But
wanted to come up with everything, and then they can filter by one or filter by the other if they choose. I was looking for like an or, and I didn't see that.
Okay. So what I did, I went to field filters.
Uh-huh.
I went to the import date time here, and this has a whole
Right.
slew of different ones. What I chose in this case was just the where is it? In between or time between day option.
Right. That's what I did. Mhm.
Mhm. So you said time between day for 2 different dates.
2 different date fields, correct.
Okay. It might be better than, so you want it in between, it might be better than then do the before days and the after days, right? So I'd say, say you want something on between the 4th and let's say the 8th. So you can add this 4 days filter. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, runtime behavior. There we go. Does that? So that goes between today's, I assume between today's date. Okay. So that does
Well,
that.
okay, so the import time between
Mhm.
behaves like I want it to on its own. The
Mhm.
problem is I need 2 of them, and it tries to filter both at the same time.
Yeah, that's the 2 parts where I'm confused, because couldn't you just say, I just want to choose it between these 2 dates? You can choose between the
No,
4th.
no. Okay, so you only have 1 date field. I have 2 dates.
Right. Well,
So
you have
let's-
an end, you have a start
No,
date.
no, no,
And
no.
then,
That's
I
not
see
where
what
I
you're
mean.
saying.
I mean 2 field dates in the add fields.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
So you
I have
want,
2 different dates there.
Okay, so you wanted to check between one date field and the other date field.
No. I want the same report. So the user is looking at a report that has all transactions on it. Sometimes they want to filter on import date. Sometimes they want to filter on deleted date in the same report.
Ah, okay.
So they don't want to filter on they don't want to filter on both fields at the same time. They want to be able to filter on one when they want to, and on the other when they want to. So if you close out of like the report, if you like just view the report itself,
Mhm.
ultimately,
I think I get what you, yeah, I think I see what you're getting at. So they want to be able to choose. I want to filter on either the import date, or I want to do the, let's say, the export day.
right. And
Right.
so there is a filter, like you can click on sort and filter. So you can click on filter, but it just brings up a box that doesn't give you a range. So to get the range, I went in and created these filters here and made them runtime editable.
Mhm.
But now I can't get them to operate independently of each other. They always filter together.
Okay, I see. Let me think. Is there? Could we? Let me see something for that. Okay, it's a bit different from what I was thinking, so I need to look. This might require. I hate to say, this might require a support ticket for us to take further time to figure
Okay,
this one
no
out.
problem. I can do that.
Okay. And I can let whoever knows gets that ticket the status here, or I can just work it myself. So I can work with you to sort of figure this one out.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll get a support ticket in for that one.
I will do that.
All right. And we will work on that together and figure that out.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. I'm sorry, there's another QA question. Andrew, I see that you had a question. You said you got that answered. I have 3 instances of the same subflow in the flow, and I want to get a unique ID for each subflow.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. I just saw that.
So imagine this subflow is going to create a data pair, name value pair. And the name is the flow instance ID.
Mhm.
Now, if I use get current flow ID, that doesn't change for 3 different flow instances. If I get flow tracking ID, then it changes for each run of the flow. And I don't want it to change for each run of the flow. I want it to be an instance ID of that instance of the flow on the parent flow.
There should be. So when you use the current flow ID, that's still outputting the same flow ID, correct?
Yeah, because it's 3 instances of the same flow.
Let's see, do we separate flow in an instance view? Trying to think on that. Let me check something real quick. I don't know if that's possible. Let me confirm that real quick though. So we get the flow. Right, the flow tracking ID would be the flow tracking ID of the parent flow and not the subflow instance.
Yeah, my understanding is that one changes every time you run it, and I don't want it to change when I run it twice.
There is a step ID. I'm getting feedback. There's a step ID. Since it's a subflow, it'd be treated as a step. So I guess that step ID could technically be used as the unique instance ID.
Okay, so is
That's
that part
one.
of the flow data?
That should be part of the flow data. Hold up, let's go into the flow and check real quick. Data, flow data, current flow ID, current user ID, current user OS. Isn't here, then I bet it's I bet it's part of the flow tracking ID. You can check the current step. Is there let me double check real quick. There's a table for that. Give me a moment, guys. Oh, score and tracking.
Yeah, I don't see a step ID in flow data.
Flow ID, session ID is complete. Current ID, current name, current status. We don't see the step ID there. It should then, if it's a subflow, we can probably go to run subflow. And we could probably go into the specific step information here to get it. But I don't think it's selectable. Do
Yeah.
you like it selectable from like a flow, like an output or like data that you can use throughout the flow, correct?
Yeah, I want to use it as a key for writing some information. So I'm passing a string from one subflow to the next subflow, and or it's actually a data pair array. And I want to use this instance ID as a key in a key value pair. So three flows that are the same flow would write three different things into the array.
Let's see. There is, okay. Check out the flow structure report. This may work, but is it usable? Can we fetch from that? There's a report. Let's see, system administration, system tools, flow management. So there's a flow structure report that we have that lists every step that's used in every flow. And so
How does that help me?
if we can, I'm sorry, I'm just speaking out loud here.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we can fetch the step ID from step name, step ID. This is, okay, flow structure report is generated by SQL. This isn't a SQL generated report, this is by the code itself. Do we have fetch entities? I wonder if we store it structure. No, that looks like a query. Let me see, flow tracking, flow breakpoint, flow constant, flow delta. No, we're only keeping flow ID here. Andrew, can we get a support ticket submitted for that? If this isn't something in the product, we can probably add this as a feature request. And we can further investigate this here. Like there's some options to mess with this, but there's a flow structure report here, but that the report is generated from actual like backend services. It isn't generated by like a SQL query. So we can't fetch it from the database that way.
Okay.
There's no way to fetch it from I'm seeing there's no way to fetch it from a flow data. If not, unless I can think of something, but right now I don't see a way of actually fetching it and using it.
All right.
Well, could we? Oh wait, we could. No, it's current flow ID. Never mind. Never mind. I was
All
thinking
right.
using.
I'll submit a ticket.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see. That was the only current submitted question. Does anyone else on call have questions about the product right now?
Yeah, Robert. So in my case, so what is the solution here?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question?
Yeah. So as I said, like we have multiple files in one folder.
Mhm.
So how to load this? This get by folder ID. Okay.
Yep.
And can we transform this file? Okay. Anyhow, I wanted to load first because I'm unable to load. That is the place where I'm stuck. I just
Yeah.
wanted to see, okay, is it loading or not.
Let me jump back in. So child folder. Let's- So we have it here. So we have the document here. And we have as a .text file. So this just stores like information about it.
Hmm.
But if we want the actual data within it, it might be better to not store it that way because this only stores a document of like this doesn't actually store the actual file. So I think we should sort of it stores it as like a document with information about it. So we have a document type here that we can then, is it a cast object to type? But that's going to cast into a decisions type. That might not be what we need here. So we can load the document data, or we can load the documents. So let's go back here.
Yeah. So Robert, in this folder, if you have multiple files, and I wanted to replace whatever the token I wanted to. So how this all file will be loaded in one instance when it is run?
Right. So let's do this. I will grab another file real quick. Let's see. What sort of dumb stuff do I have I can throw in here? Okay. Oops, not the import. I want to just add as documents. Okay. We've given it the folder here.
Outside that side folder. Okay, that is fine. Anything is fine.
Yep. And let me not end the flow. We're not going to do anything here. Just going to place folder step. Just going to throw that up here. And so debugging this here. So this is outputting a list of items. a list of documents here. So right now we have 2 documents. Why is it outputting just a double? That's interesting. That is interesting because it's only then get by folder ID. Oh wait, did I grab the?
Yeah. So what happens here? The child folder ID you have taken, Robert, and in that child it has only one file.
There it is. I used the wrong folder ID, I think. Or I did not. Why is that only? So this is okay. This may be a
In
bug
this
then.
child folder, you have only one file. If you take the parent one,
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologies. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we have 2 items now. And these are both the first doc or the first one I added and the second one here. So this outputs a list, and this for each will then take in that list, and then you can apply whatever logic you want for every item in this list. So then to sort of transform it to what we want, moving it to like a CSV, let me check if there's steps for that. Integration, see internal services. Document service, get ID, get document data, get document file info. Let's see, get document data. Yep, okay, so this is, so then we can get the file data out of there like this. In this case, it's a text, well, actually, and so then when we pass something through here, it's going to be output as an item here. So we can just get that item's document ID from this list. So then we can actually output the data for this document. So we haven't added this way. We can then we can output the file data into a list using an add item to list step. New item, just gonna select file data. It's the original list, we're just gonna going to then nope, that's not what I want. I want the new list of file data. Okay, so now we're creating a list of file data. Once we have that file data created, depending on the type we're using, we can then, if it's a text, we can get the text from the file data, or we can just transform the file data and sort of what type we want. So, file. Gosh, where does that step again? Now, if this is like already like a CSV type that we've added, we can just throw that CSV type into these Excel steps. That's the caveat. That's essentially what we want to do. So we want to either get an Excel, or we want to have this data saved or submitted as like a CSV file or like an Excel file. But once we fetch that document and we fetch document data, we can then create a new list of the file data that we need. Then once we have that, we can use where is it? We can actually use like a for each Excel or row step. And so then you can add a file in here, and then for each row or for each row, we can replace the data, or we can apply logic like we need to. In this case, though, since we have a list of file data, we're going to also want to use another for each loop here to sort through every file object. In this case, then we'll use this, and we'll just go to next. I'm not going to do anything, but next row, and done. Now this will probably fail for me because I'm not using any sort of Excel data in this case. I just have, I'm just using just the documents I have on hand at the time to sort of do this. This is more what you want to follow here. You want to get the data into like a type that we can work with. In this case would be Excel or CSV, and then use our Excel or CSV steps to then go through and replace or make changes as we need to the files that you're sharing. Does that help, Vineet?
Yeah, some idea I got, Robert. Let
Mhm.
me try that. Definitely, I will have some difficulties. I'll come back.
Okay. Yeah, if you hit more problems, just ask, or come back to another one, or you can always submit a support ticket for assistance with certain things.
Sure. Thank you, Robert.
Does anyone else have questions right now? Okay. Well, I don't hear any questions. So there's one last thing I'd like to share that I found out recently. Um, if anyone is working with projects or using the repository for check-in or deployments, and there's lots of times we run into an issue where customers like, well, I don't want my unit tests, or somehow they've added all their unit tests to their project. They don't want those checked into the repository. There's a neat setting. If you go to settings, it's under repository settings, and there's exclude unit tests from the repository. Selecting and using this will then exclude all unit tests from the repository, or from check-ins on the repository. So in future check-ins, you won't need to worry about doing or worry about having to sort out unit tests. There's also exclude data generated data structures from the repository, which I believe is the same thing. It sort of prevents you from checking in data structures that may generate for whatever use case you might need. There's also this allow checkout to delete dependencies. So this is something that's new. We're pretty, we try to be pretty strong about deleting things or preventing things from being deleted. And so sometimes you may run into an issue where you might do a checkout and you'll get an issue, or you'll get a deletion issue stating that, an item is used as a dependency as to something that's still in use. That's the case, and you don't really care, or you just want to get it removed. Either way, you can use this allow checkout to actually just delete that, which will force the delete even if there is a dependency. Normally, though, this is by default because there's a lot of dependencies that can go into an object in a flow or a rule or a truth table that can have like a whole bunch of dependencies on something that may not be known. So just use it with your own discretion. If you're absolutely sure on your project, or your project at the back of your hand, this is a good way to sort of clean up or just do a checkout if you're trying to delete some things there. But I think if no one else has any more questions, I think we're good to end it here. I don't have anything else today. I want to thank you guys for coming in today, and just come back tomorrow. I think who's on tomorrow? I think we have
Tomorrow Or we have Ashley Beer from the pre-sales engineering team.
Okay. So pre-sales engineer, they're the they're one of the wizards that we call. Anyone that, you know, has been on a call with our pre-sales engineers knows that they are very experienced in the tool, and they know a lot of cool tips and tricks for the tool. So I'll go ahead and end it. You guys have a great day, and thank you for joining us.